In the vast and brutal theater of the Pacific War, logic and firepower were the undisputed kings of naval combat. The calculus was simple. Bigger guns, thicker armor, and superior numbers would invariably carry the day. It was a war of industrial might, of steel leviathans trading cataclysmic blows across miles of open ocean. Battles were decided by admirals moving fleets like pieces on a grand, unforgiving chessboard. But what happens when that logic is shattered? What happens when a single piece on the board, one of the smallest and most vulnerable, refuses to follow the rules? Imagine a lone wolf, facing a pack of grizzly bears. Imagine a single-foot soldier, armed with a rifle, charging a column of tanks. The outcome seems preordained, a futile, suicidal gesture. Yet, on an October morning in 1944, under the equatorial sun off the coast of the Philippines, something precisely this illogical occurred. An entire fleet of the world's most powerful battleships, the pride and final gamble of an empire, found its path blocked. Not by an opposing fleet of equal strength, but by one single, impossibly brave American destroyer. This is the story of a ship that should have run, but instead, turned to face the fire. This is the incredible true story of the single destroyer that charged an entire battleship fleet. The autumn of 1944 was a season of reckoning in the Pacific. The relentless island-hopping campaign, paid for in blood and treasure, had brought American forces to the very doorstep of the Japanese Empire. The next logical step, and one of immense strategic and symbolic importance, was the liberation of the Philippines. For General Douglas MacArthur, it was the fulfillment of his famous promise, "I shall return." For the Imperial Japanese Navy, it was the final line in the sand. Losing the Philippines would sever Japan's crucial oil supply lines from the Dutch East Indies, effectively strangling its war machine. The stakes could not be higher. In response, the Japanese High Command conceived of a plan of staggering complexity and desperation, Operation Shogo 1. It was an all-or-nothing gambit, committing nearly every remaining major surface combatant of the Imperial Navy to a single, decisive battle. The plan called for 3 separate fleets, or forces, to converge on the American invasion fleet at Leyte Gulf. The southern force would strike from the south, through the Surigao Strait. The northern force, a collection of carriers with very few planes, would act as a decoy, luring the main American carrier fleet away to the north. And the most powerful of all, the center force, commanded by Vice Admiral Takeo Kurita, would steam east through the San Bernardino Strait, descend upon the vulnerable American landing beaches from the north, and annihilate the troop transports and their light escorts. The American command structure, while powerful, contained a critical flaw. The naval forces were divided between 2 commanders with no unified command. Admiral William "Bull" Halsey commanded the mighty Third Fleet, a fast carrier strike force that was the most powerful naval armada the world had ever seen. Its job was to seek out and destroy the enemy fleet. To the south, Admiral Thomas Kinkaid commanded the Seventh Fleet, the invasion fleet, composed of older battleships, cruisers, and a vast number of transports and landing craft. Its job was to protect the landings. The seam between these 2 commands, the unguarded San Bernardino Strait, would become the fulcrum of the entire battle. Halsey, an aggressive and quintessential carrier admiral, took the bait. On the evening of October 24, his scouts spotted the northern force, the carrier decoy under Admiral Ozawa. Believing this to be the main Japanese threat, and eager to sink the carriers that had struck Pearl Harbor, Halsey made a fateful decision. He took his entire Third Fleet, including its battleships and cruisers, and steamed north at high speed, leaving the San Bernardino Strait completely unguarded. He broadcast his intention, but a series of communication errors and assumptions left Admiral Kinkaid in the south believing that a portion of Halsey's fleet, Task Force 34, had been detached to guard the strait. It had not. The gate was wide open. Through that gate, under the cover of darkness, sailed Admiral Kurita's center force. It was a fleet of staggering power. 4 battleships, including the largest and most powerful battleship ever constructed, the Yamato. She displaced over 72,000 tons and mounted 9 18.1-inch main guns, capable of hurling armor-piercing shells weighing more than a small car over 26 miles. Accompanying her were the battleships Nagato *, Congo *, and Haruna *, along with 6 heavy cruisers, 2 light cruisers, and a screen of 11 destroyers. Though battered by American air attacks the previous day which had sunk the Yamato's * sister ship, the Musashi *, the center force was still an instrument of overwhelming naval power, designed to crush anything in its path. And what stood in its path? Nothing but 3 small task units of the 7th Fleet, codenamed Taffy 1, Taffy 2, and Taffy 3. These were not fleet combatants. They were escort carrier groups. Their ships were the cast-offs of the Navy, small, slow, jeep carriers, or baby flat-tops, built on merchant ship hulls, and a thin screen of destroyers and even smaller destroyer escorts. Their primary mission was supporting troops on the ground and hunting submarines, not engaging in a surface battle with battleships. The northernmost of these groups, the one directly in Kurita's path, was Task Unit 77.4-3, Taffy 3. Commanded by Rear Admiral Clifton Sprague, Taffy 3 was a modest force. 6 escort carriers, 3 destroyers, and 4 destroyer escorts. One of those destroyers was the USS Johnston *, designated DD 557. She was a Fletcher-class destroyer, a workhorse of the fleet. 2,100 tons, 376 feet long. Her main armament consisted of 5 5-inch guns, weapons that fired a 55-pound shell. They were excellent against aircraft, shore targets, or other destroyers. Against the foot-thick armor of a Japanese battleship, they were little more than pea shooters. The Johnston's * real sting lay in her 10 21-inch torpedo tubes. But to use them, she would have to get suicidally close to her target. The Johnston * was a new ship, commissioned just a year earlier. Her captain was Commander Ernest E. Evans, a man who would, in the next few hours, etch his name into the annals of naval legend. Evans was a United States Naval Academy graduate, a full-blooded Cherokee from Oklahoma. He was known as a serious, professional officer, but beneath that exterior burned an intense fighting spirit. At the ship's commissioning ceremony, he had set the tone for his crew in a speech that would prove prophetic. Addressing the sailors, he declared, "This is going to be a fighting ship. I intend to go in harm's way, and anyone who doesn't want to go along had better get off right now." He concluded with a promise that would define their fate: "I will never run from a fight." As the sun rose on October 25, 1944, the men of Taffy 3 were preparing for another routine day of launching air patrols. The sea was calm, the sky hazy. At 6:37, an anti-submarine patrol pilot from the carrier *Kadashan Bay * radioed in a shocking report. He had spotted a large Japanese fleet. It was so unexpected, the initial reaction in Admiral Sprague's flag plot was disbelief. The pilot was asked to verify. The reply came back, laced with panic: he was being fired upon by pagoda-style masts. There was no mistaking it. Pagoda masts were the distinctive superstructure of Japanese battleships. Aboard the bridge of Sprague's flagship, the Fanshawe Bay *, an officer looked through his binoculars and saw the unmistakable sight. "My God," he exclaimed, "they're firing at us." The placid morning erupted. Geysers of water, taller than the ships themselves, began to walk across the formation. The Japanese had a sophisticated fire control system that used colored dyes in their shells to allow spotters to distinguish which ship's salvos were which. Green, red, yellow, and purple plumes of water erupted around the slow, unarmored American carriers. Sprague knew his situation was hopeless. He was outgunned, outranged, and utterly surprised. His carriers could make 18 knots at best. The Japanese cruisers and battleships could make 28 to 30. There was no escape. Sprague's voice crackled over the radio network, a message of stark desperation: "The Japs are attacking us. They're firing on the CVEs from the starboard quarter." He gave the only orders he could: turn east into the wind to launch every available aircraft, lay smoke to obscure the fleet, and pray for help that was hours, if not days, away. A signal went out in the clear, uncoded, to any American ship that could hear it: enemy battleships and cruisers sighted. Firing on Taffy 3. On the bridge of the USS Johnston *, Commander Evans watched the shell splashes bracket the American carriers. He listened to Sprague's desperate call. He had his orders: screen the carriers, lay smoke. But Ernest Evans was not a man to follow orders that would lead to certain destruction. He saw the Japanese battle line, the behemoths on the horizon, and made a decision that defied every naval doctrine in the book. He did not need to wait for an order from Admiral Sprague. He knew what he had to do. He turned to his helmsman and gave the command that would seal their fate and begin their legend. "Left full rudder, flank speed, we're going in." The Johnston * heeled over hard, breaking formation from the other screening ships. Without a single order from the flagship, she surged forward, a lone sliver of gray steel accelerating directly toward the oncoming Japanese armada. A signalman on the flagship, seeing the destroyer's solo maneuver, flashed a query, "What are you doing?" The Johnston's asterisk reply was simple and absolute: going in for a torpedo attack. Evans' plan was audacious to the point of insanity. He was going to use his ship's speed to close the 30,000-yard gap, get within torpedo range of the lead Japanese cruisers, launch his weapons, and then try to get out. All while under the concentrated fire of the most powerful surface fleet on the planet. As the Johnston asterisk raced ahead, her crew began laying a thick smokescreen, a billowing curtain of black chemical smoke that would provide a desperately needed shield for the fleeing carriers. Her 5-inch guns opened fire at their maximum range, a bark of defiance against the thunder of the Japanese heavy guns. The shells from Johnston *S guns were practically harmless to the armored hulls of the Japanese cruisers and battleships, but they served a purpose. They were a distraction, an annoyance. It was like a gnat buzzing around the head of a bear. More importantly, it drew the attention, and the fire, of the enemy. The Japanese flagship, the heavy cruiser Kumano shifted its fire to this impertinent American destroyer. Shells began to land around the Johnston. The sea boiled. The ship weaved and dodged, her gunnery officer, Lieutenant Robert Hagen, directing her fire. They needed to get closer. 18,000 yards. 15,000 yards. The ship was shuddering under the near misses. The noise was a physical blow, a constant, deafening roar of explosions and whining shrapnel. Inside the torpedo director, Lieutenant Jack Bechtel was calling out the range. Evans' target was the Kumano, the leader of the cruiser squadron. At 10,000 yards, just over 5 miles, they were in range. It was the moment of truth. On Evans' command, Bechtel gave the order. One by one, 10 torpedoes, the ship's entire complement, leaped from their tubes and sped towards the Japanese line. The Johnston had done its job. Now it had to survive. Evans ordered a hard turn and began to retreat back towards the smoke, her guns still firing. The crew watched the wakes of their torpedoes, thin white lines racing across the blue water. Time seemed to slow. Then, a massive explosion erupted from the bow of the Kumano. One, possibly more, of Johnston's torpedoes had found its mark. The bow of the heavy cruiser was blown clean off. Fire and smoke billowed from the crippled ship, and she fell out of formation, her speed drastically reduced. The lead ship of the Japanese vanguard had been stopped cold by the first American counterattack. The Johnston had drawn first blood. But valor has a price. As the Johnston retired, her luck ran out. The Japanese fleet, enraged by the attack, concentrated its fire on the small destroyer. A trio of 14-inch shells from the battleship Congo *, each weighing over 1,400 pounds, slammed into the ship in quick succession. They were followed by 3 6.1-inch shells from a light cruiser or the battleship Yamato's secondary battery. The damage was devastating. The ship felt like it had been picked up and slammed back into the water. One shell obliterated the bridge, killing and wounding many. Shrapnel tore through Commander Evans, ripping 2 fingers from his left hand and riddling his neck and face with wounds. His shirt was blown from his back. Another shell hit deep in the engineering spaces, cutting power to the aft 3-gun mounts and severing all electrical steering control. A third shell destroyed the aft fire room. The ship lost speed, dropping to 17 knots. She was a wreck, on fire, listing, with a third of her crew dead or wounded. By all rights, the USS Johnston was finished. She was crippled, her primary weapons expended, her captain grievously wounded. But the fight in her was not extinguished. As the ship wallowed in the water, her engineering crew performed miracles. They rerouted steam lines and managed to restore power to one engine. Steering control was a greater challenge. With the bridge controls gone, sailors scrambled to the fantail, to the emergency steering station located directly above the rudders. They rigged a manual tiller. For the next 2 hours, the USS Johnston would be steered by men shouting commands down a hatch to the sailors physically manhandling the ship's rudders. Commander Evans, wounded and bleeding, made his way from the wrecked bridge to the aft conning station to direct the fight from the stern of his ship. For a brief period, a providential rain squall moved over the area, providing a temporary shield for the battered American ships. Inside the squall, Taffy 3 was a scene of controlled chaos. Damage control parties fought fires and tended to the wounded. The other destroyers of the screen, the USS Hoyle ** and USS *Him *, along with the diminutive destroyer escort USS Samuel B. Roberts *, were now inspired by Johnston's * initial charge. One by one, they too turned and launched their own desperate torpedo and gun attacks against the Japanese fleet, weaving through shell splashes in a display of breathtaking courage. As the Johnston * emerged from the other side of the rain squall, Evans saw a horrifying sight. The Japanese battle line was concentrating its fire on the escort carrier Gambier Bay. The slow carrier, unable to escape, was being systematically pounded into a flaming hulk. Evans, without a moment's hesitation, gave a new set of orders. Despite having no torpedoes left and only half his guns in operation, he would attack again. The target this time was the line of Japanese destroyers that was closing in for the kill on the American carriers. "Commence firing on that cruiser, draw her fire on us and away from the Gambier Bay *, Evans ordered. The Johnston's * forward guns, the only ones still operational, opened up once more. The wounded destroyer charged a line of 7 Japanese destroyers, led by the light cruiser * Yahagi. It was a maneuver of pure sacrifice. The Johnston * was deliberately making itself the more attractive target to save the carrier. For the next hour, the Johnston * played a deadly game of cat and mouse. It engaged the Japanese cruiser, firing over 30 rounds and scoring hits, forcing it to break off its torpedo run. Then, it engaged the destroyer squadron, dodging their salvos and firing back with its 2 remaining forward guns. Lieutenant Hagen on the gun director was having remarkable success, hitting the lead Japanese destroyer multiple times and forcing the entire squadron to prematurely launch their torpedoes, all of which missed. The Johnston * was a wounded animal, bleeding and cornered, but still fighting with unimaginable ferocity. It was drawing fire from battleships, cruisers, and destroyers, a hornet's nest of steel directed at one small ship. But the punishment was more than any ship could absorb. The Japanese commander of the destroyer squadron, seeing his torpedo attack foiled, concentrated the fire of his entire squadron on the Johnston. The ship was hit again and again. An avalanche of shells tore through her thin hull. The remaining engine room was hit and began to flood. All power was lost. The forward guns fell silent. The ship was dead in the water, burning from bow to stern. At 9:45, with the ship listing heavily to port and settling by the stern, Commander Ernest Evans finally gave the order he had staved off for 2.5 hours: abandon ship. The surviving crew, exhausted and wounded, began to go over the side into the oily, churning water. One of the last to be seen was Commander Evans, on the fantail with his remaining officers, waving to the men in the water. He would not be among the survivors. As the USS Johnston * began its final plunge, a remarkable event, a moment of grace amidst the carnage, was witnessed by her survivors. A passing Japanese destroyer, one of the ships that had just pounded her into submission, came close. The American sailors in the water, expecting to be strafed, were stunned by what they saw. The captain of the Japanese destroyer was standing at the rail of his bridge, saluting. It was the ultimate gesture of respect from one warrior to another. At 10:10 a.m., on October 25, 1944, the USS Johnston * rolled over and slid beneath the waves, her battle ensign still flying. The battle off Samar was not over, but its character had been forever changed by the sacrifice of the Johnston * and her sister ships of the destroyer screen. The ferocity of their attacks had a profound psychological effect on Admiral Kurita. He had been told he would be facing transports and light escorts. Instead, he was met with a suicidal, coordinated defense that seemed to come from a much heavier force. The smokescreens, the rain squalls, and the constant harassment from the destroyers and the aircraft of Taffy 3 had sown confusion and disorder in his battle line. His ships were scattered, his flagship cruiser had been knocked out of action, and 2 other heavy cruisers had been sunk by the combined attacks. Kurita, receiving reports of American carrier groups to his north, south, and east, some real, some imagined, and believing he had stumbled into a hornet's nest, made one of the most controversial decisions of the war. Just after noon, with the American invasion beaches almost within his grasp, he gave the order to break off the attack and retire back through the San Bernardino Strait. The spirit of the warrior, which the men of Taffy 3 had in abundance, had seemingly deserted the Japanese admiral. He had victory in his hands and let it slip away. The cost for Taffy 3 was grievous. The destroyers Johnston * and Hoyle *, and the destroyer escort Samuel B. Roberts * were sunk. The escort carrier Gambier Bay * was also lost to surface fire, and the St. Lo * was sunk by a kamikaze attack later in the battle. Of the Johnston's * crew of 327 men, only 141 survived. Commander Ernest E. Evans was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor for his conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty. His citation reads that he gallantly charged a powerful Japanese fleet, and skillfully coordinated the attacks of his squadron to inflict maximum damage on the enemy. The ordeal for the survivors was just beginning. For over 2 days, they floated in the water, battling sharks, exposure, and dehydration before they were finally rescued. Their story, and the story of their ship, became a touchstone of courage within the United States Navy, a testament to what a determined crew on a small ship could achieve against impossible odds. For decades, the final resting place of the USS Johnston * remained a mystery, lost to the immense depths of the Philippine Trench. Then, in 2019, a research vessel located the wreckage. And in 2021, an expedition led by explorer Victor Vescovo made a crude descent, positively identifying the bow number 557 on the shattered hull. The USS Johnston * rests upright and largely intact, over 21,000 feet below the surface, making it the deepest shipwreck ever discovered. A silent, steel monument in the crushing dark, a permanent testament to the men who served aboard her. The Battle off Samar is a story of command failures and communication breakdowns, of strategic gambles and desperate improvisations. But at its heart, it is the story of individual courage. It is the story of men like Ernest Evans and the crew of the USS Johnston * who, when faced with certain annihilation, did not hesitate. They did not run. They did what their captain had promised they would do. They went in harm's way. By charging headlong into the teeth of a vastly superior force, a single American destroyer and her valiant companions altered the course of a major naval battle and, in doing so, helped save the entire American invasion of the Philippines. They proved that in war, the size of the ship matters, but the size of the fight in the crew matters more. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe for more stories.